Education savings plans. So you're planning to pay for college or pay for your kids' tuition for elementary and secondary school. Then whoever's going to pay for it may want to invest in a 529 plan, as a 529 plan is a tax advantage savings plan designed to encourage saving for future education costs, which are sponsored by states, state agencies, or educational institutions. If you invest in a 529 plan, then you can spend the funds on the following from the 529 plan: four-year colleges, community colleges, trade and vocational schools, graduate schools, certain apprenticeship programs, and qualifying online course and degree programs. In addition, you can cover the following types of expenses with funds from your 529 plan: tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, special services, computer and related equipment, and repayment of student loans. Now that you may have been interested in investing in a 529 plan, understand that there are two types of 529 plans: prepaid tuition plans and education savings plans. First, prepaid tuition plans. The Pro. They let a saver or account holder purchase units or credits at participating colleges and universities, which are generally public and in-state, for future tuition and mandatory fees at current prices for the beneficiary. However, prepaid tuition plans usually cannot be used to pay for future room and board at colleges and universities and do not allow you to prepay for tuition for elementary and secondary schools. In addition, most prepaid tuition plans are sponsored by state governments and have a residency requirement for the saver and or beneficiary. Then, prepaid tuition plans may be guaranteed by a state, but aren't guaranteed by the federal government. Some state governments guarantee the money paid into the prepaid tuition plans that they sponsor, but some do not. Fourth, if your prepaid tuition plans aren't guaranteed, you may lose some or all of your money in the plan if the plan sponsor has a financial shortfall. And finally, if a beneficiary doesn't attend a participating college or university, the prepaid tuition plan may pay less than if the beneficiary attended a participating college or university. It may only pay a small return on the original investment. As for education savings plans, they let a saver open up an investment account to save for the beneficiary's future qualified higher education expenses such as tuition, mandatory fees, and room and board. Withdrawals from an education savings plan account can generally be used at any college or university, including sometimes at non-U.S. colleges and universities. Also, education savings plans can be used to pay up to $10,000 per year per beneficiary for tuition at any public, private, or religious elementary or secondary school, K through 12. A saver may typically choose among a range of investment portfolio options, which often include various mutual fund and exchange-traded fund portfolios and a principal protected bank product. All education savings plans are sponsored by state governments, but only a few have residency requirements for the saver and or beneficiary. However, state governments do not guarantee investments in education savings plans. Education savings plan investments in mutual funds and ETFs are not federally guaranteed, but investments in some principal protected bank products may be insured by the FDIC. And as with most investments in education savings plans may not make any money and could lose some or all of the money invested. With that being said, if a 529 plan is for you, assess your own situation and risk level. But from the pros and cons, it would appear that opening an education savings plan gives you more flexibility with your money, but with more potential risk. Now I want to touch on 529 withdrawals so you can avoid any potential tax and penalty issues. The earnings are tax-free for federal and usually state income tax too for qualified higher education expenses or tuition for elementary or secondary schools. However, if not used for qualified higher education expenses or tuition for elementary or secondary schools, the withdrawals will be subject to state and federal income taxes and an additional 10% federal tax penalty on the earnings. There are exceptions to the 10% penalty, but they are still subject to income taxes, so discuss this with your financial advisor before withdrawing. Now, you've decided you're going to open up a 529 plan account. What are the requirements? First, you must be a U.S. resident at any income level. Second, you are at least 18 and have a U.S. mailing address, which is legal. And lastly, you have a Social Security or tax ID number. With all that being said, if you're planning on spending money on higher education expenses or tuition for elementary and secondary schools, then it may be wise to invest in a 529 plan.